Good morning and welcome to the 2015 Student Youth Question and Answer webinar for North Carolina. This morning, this is intended to be both an information session as well as a session where you get to ask questions or make comments or observations about all the things that you've been curious about or maybe having some trouble about as we go along. As we go through the webinar, as I shared with you a little earlier, feel free to stop me at any point in time. It is not a formal session where you have to wait till the presenter finishes. This is a very informal Saturday morning session. Several of you probably are in your pajamas, so I want you to just feel comfortable to ask and receive information that you need. All right, so as we begin to kind of go down the session information, I will share with you that there, of course, are only two students who can actually be able to represent the state as the Senate Youth persons. In that, we have two representatives who will be our delegates, and then we'll have two alternates. And I wanted to start off with that because, of course, as you saw on the beginning slide, as well as on the website, we're looking for two. And so the question mark is, this year, who will those two be? And as we look at who those two will be, we want to look and see if any of those candidates who are applying have some questions that need to be addressed. And so with us making sure that you get what you need, I want to ensure that you also understand that there will only be two delegates that will be chosen out of however many candidate applicants come in and are reviewed and reach the final interview phase. The important thing to note is the two alternates. Those are very critical positions because in all the history of the entire program, but especially in the history of North Carolina's program of Senate delegates, there have been times when one of the winners, because you guys are in so many things, that one of the winners couldn't go, and so then the first alternate was then called and could go. As well as there have been a time or two where neither of the winners could go, and then both alternates get to go. There's also been a time where one of the winners couldn't go, and the first alternate couldn't go, and so the second alternate got a chance to go. And when that happens, the winners don't get the scholarship either, and the scholarship then goes to one of the alternates if that is the person who ends up going. So wanted to start off because I've had several emails about how many students will be able to go or to receive the position as the winner and receive the scholarship, and it's only two. And that's because it's representative of being a Senate, and only two senators from each state are elected. So with that, you begin to kind of look at us, trying to take a look at what I actually want to focus on based on what's been asked of me so far and in the past. And that brings me to making sure that everyone knows that there's two differences, and make sure that you're getting your information from the first website, and that is our North Carolina site. And you can access that at this link. Those of you on this webinar, of course, have been there because you signed up for the webinar, but I put that there because there are people you may want to share this with. And the second link is just simply to the national site. So these 5 areas are going to be kind of what we go down. If I don't cover an area that you want, make sure that you just inquire. And as we go through this, in any of these points in time, stop me, so that I don't go to another section and you're still kind of confused about one of the sections. Um, the process, I'm going to start with sharing with you that it is a process that is submitted to the National Foundation, and it's approved by the National Foundation, looked at, and if there are any questions, they shoot back and ask us why we are doing something, and maybe even make suggestions on thinking about doing something differently or what have you. So our process not only is set for this particular round, it is on record with the National Hearst Foundation and approved to be the process we use in North Carolina, and it is most definitely different than processes in other states. A lot of states only have you take the exam, and the top two people from the exam win. There's some states where you only write an essay. The top people who they feel wrote the best two essays goes. But North Carolina, we got a series of 3 rounds. The first round is where you send in all of your application information by October the 4th, and you send it in the way that we request it be sent. We're going to go over that in a few minutes. That is the first step that can get you disqualified as the candidate and your information not even be looked at. The second round, once everything's validated, you've done everything correctly, you sent in everything, everything's filled out and complete, and there's a review on your initial essay and your digital presentation. Then we go to the second round of the judging process, and your information is sent out to be judged. And what are we judging? That your Senate Youth essay, it's read and it's judged based on a rubric, and we'll talk about that rubric so you won't be unaware of what is going to be looked for. And your digital presentation that was originally vetted is now reviewed and judged based on what you put into that digital presentation to highlight and expand upon who you are. Once that's done, the judges come up with a top 10, and that information comes back to me, and I, from that, select the top 6 or 7 students to move on to the next phase. And it is then where you have the selection process. And with the selection process, that's where we invite you, based on being the top 6 or 7, to come to Raleigh at the Department of Public Instruction and to interview. It's a day interview, and it will probably be something that you would have to get permission to be out of school for. I'll go ahead and tell you that is always on a school day, and you can just talk to your guidance counselor, your principal, and this is most definitely an excused absence. But you do have to let your school know that. There won't be a problem with that, because in the application that you send out, your guidance counselor and your principal both have to sign acknowledging that they are aware that you are submitting to be a candidate, so that when you do if you do get called to be a part of the final round, that you don't have a problem with absences. And that is one of the reasons that we make sure that you have those signatures. And then, of course, after that, we make our decision that day. And once you leave, you won't know what that decision is, but there'll be 2 winners and 2 alternates, and then that information I have to write up and submit to the Hearst Foundation. It has to be into the Hearst Foundation by December the 1st, and that is across the nation in every state. And so you will not hear anything back until after December 1st, and so it won't be the first week, it won't be the second, And I'll tell you that because many people call it, well, what happened? What happened is after it's December the 3rd. Well, the first is the deadline nationally to get the information in of who the winners are for your state. And then that information is vetted, is taken through security, because you are going to Washington, D.C., to some very sensitive places. And once they have validated that this is truly a person who is a resident, their parent is a resident, there is no complication, they send us a press release and tell us that we can tell you that they will be contacting you, and then that later the senators from our state will be releasing a press release to the papers. So remember, the submission date for us is October the 4th, and I'm just checking for questions. I don't see any, and so I'll move on from that. But this is our process. If you are here as a guidance counselor or a school person supporting students for this, please just note that this is something you might want to share with any person who you talk to after today. Can you apply North Carolina? This is increasingly, because we're such a transient state, as far as having a lot of influx of various military bases and industrial, professional areas of work where parents are constantly in and out, and students coming into schools at different points of the year. It is important, and I just really had a conversation with the national coordinator once again this year, just last week, to ensure that we are honoring who can and cannot apply as far as residency and eligibility. And that is, you must be enrolled in either a public, a private, or a public charter school in North Carolina, and you must then be a student whose parent is a resident of North Carolina. Now, if that is a military connection, of course, that is something that still would apply, but the parent has to know that he or she, as the military parent, will be in North Carolina for the entirety of this school year, which means from the time right now that you're applying as a student candidate to when the school year ends, you are a resident stationed wherever you are stationed. If you are going to be restationed or you're going to be deploying back somewhere after December maybe, or January, then you're not going to be eligible to apply if that is your parent situation. And that's important, because when the National Foundation begins to look at your information, and then you're now suddenly in another state because your parents are military, then that's going to not allow you to be able to keep the scholarship or attend the Washington Week. So please make sure that, as some people have done, that your residency can be proven and that it is going to be for at least this school year. Also, if you're going to graduate early, you're not eligible to apply. That is most definitely a very admirable and something that you need to be honored for if you're graduating early, because it took hard work to get you there. However, any December graduates cannot apply for this. You must be a North Carolina school student, in school, attending, enrolled during the time that this applies to you. Applications, of course, are due. You already know. But I'm not going to make any assumptions, because we've had people be disqualified in the past because of this one due date. And that is, not only should we receive in our office a mailed in application for the Senate Youth, we also need to receive in our office that application on or before October the 4th. And if you happen to mail it on October the 3rd or actually on October the 4th, when it gets to us, it may not get to us until October the 6th, but it should have a timestamp from the Postal Service or from the FedEx people that says it was mailed out on a date that was either on or before October the 4th. So you know how the mailing system works. This just means you need to make sure that you have everything mailed in by our due date. If for whatever reason, and I myself as a young student had been in this situation, and I had to really just accept the rules being the rules. If you, for some reason, you just can't get something in the mail, and the mail system, you think you get it in like right on the cusp of you put it in on October the 4th, but you may get it in after the mail crew timestamps. And I get it in the office and it says October the 5th. That is grounds for not opening and reading your information. It is just simply because it is such it is a contest or competition to a certain extent. To be fair to everybody, we have to adhere to the rules. So that's why I stress that, because it does have the potential to have someone who could be our winner, we not even accept their application. The other point is you need to mail it in electronically, and that's a real easy thing for me to be able to check also, is because whatever comes in through email with those application requirements is going to be timestamped. So there is no question about when you send your electronic forms, because it'll tell us a timestamp that will be on or before October the 4th, October the 5th. Now, why I say October the 5th for that is because if you send me an email on October the 4th at 11:59 p.m., you're good, because you mailed it on October the 4th. If you send it in and it's 12 o'clock, then what also is going to say October the 5th, 12 o'clock. And that's documentation. If someone from the foundation asks to see my record to validate the process that we say we use, then that's just important. And it's really good because we're very proud of having a very open and transparent process, and that's fair. And that we don't want to challenge anyone, and we don't want to be challenged. We want it to be open, and we want you to feel comfortable that if anything that will disqualify you, it is based on the rules. So that being said, I want to stop here and just see if from the application, if anyone has any questions, because I want to kind of talk about some important components. So I'll stop here and I'll unmute you to see if there are questions you want me to address about something that you're filling out on this application form. So I've unmuted you, and you don't even have to raise your hand. Is there anyone who wants to ask anything about the application or something, just to make something clear? I hear someone asking a question, but you're kind of muffled. I'm not sure if your mic is up too loud or what have you, but we actually can't understand what you're saying. We hear you talking, but we can't understand. And if you'd like to type in the question into the question box, then I can read it and give you an answer. I'm not sure who actually is asking the question, but if you would type it in to the question box and submit it, and I will give you an answer to that. Is there anyone else who has started filling out the application and came across something that you just want to make sure you've done right, or that you follow to the letter. Okay. Well, I'm going to move on then. And if I address something that triggers your mind, let me know. Wonderful. We got a really good question here. Is this the only form we're supposed to submit in the mail? Yes. Thank you for that question, Angelica. Thank you for that question. This is the only form that you have to submit in the mail. Um, I don't need the other forms because you're going to submit them electronically. The reason that I need you to submit this form to me in a hard copy is because we need those original signatures. We need those original signatures of your guidance counselor who's going to validate that whatever is down for your GPA, that's your GPA, because that is part of the national qualifications for eligibility, is that all the students who will attend and get the scholarship and go to DC, that they have a GPA that is at or above the requirements. Now the state can have additional requirements, which we don't, but you must meet those, and your guidance counselor is going to validate that. Your principal needs to sign, because as a state, we need to make sure your school knows that you are actually applying. You don't have to be approved by the school as far as the candidate to represent the school or nominated by this. Each school, in the past has said we're only going to have one person we're going to nominate from our school. That is not the North Carolina process. And so we don't want to tell schools what to do, but this application, if 10 people from the school want to apply, they can. And we just want to make sure that all 10 have the principal's signature to say that they know that this student is submitting, because as I said, you may end up having to miss that day of school. Also, the information goes to the superintendent and to the principal to recognize your school. So this is a great question. Now, as far as your letters of recommendation, we want those to be emailed in with the rest of your entry submissions. So that too is another good question from you guys. Someone has asked that question. So your information has to come to us, and it needs to come to us electronically as far as your recommendations. Now, if you have a person who is just so they don't want you for whatever reason to see what they write, and I don't know why, be very careful with that kind of thing. But you may want to rethink who you get to do your recommendation for you, because if I'm writing a recommendation for a student or anyone, there shouldn't be anything in there that I don't allow them to see. Now, we know on a lot of college applications, you have to do that, and they have to sign across the back and all of that to ensure that the envelope isn't open. But even with that, you should always ask them for a copy of what they're sending in, because you would like to know what they're saying about you. So those are two really good questions, and if there are any more, you can use the typing feature or just raise your hand. So I love that. All right. Since you guys didn't have any questions, I hope you're doing well with the filling out of the application. But these are some points that, as I say, that this right here will get you disqualified before we even read your information. So I'm just going to point out this right here. It needs to be submitted to the email that you have on the application. Do not send this to my email at DPI where it says Michelle McLaughlin. You can email me any time of the day or night as long as you want, asking me questions. You can send me 2, 3, 10 emails a day. There are some students who do that. I don't mind. I will answer you back as soon as I get them. But all your entry information must come to this email, the North Carolina Senate Youth at gmail.com. Down here, Some of you are looking at this and you may say, "Wow, that doesn't make sense." Anyone who is student qualified enough to send in to become an applicant candidate should know to put your name on here, because you would be surprised at how many people will fill out everything else, and I don't know why it comes in with no student name right here. So part of this also is about real world transference of skills, and that is when you fill out any application, job, college, what have you, you are the person, you need to fill it out correctly, but why would you leave your name on? I have in the past been, very, I think accommodating and considerate. I have, if I get them in time and I look at them and it's before the deadline, I will send it back and say, can you send me this with your name on it? Because you don't want to disqualify someone for that, but this is a tight competition, and so every little thing it matters. And then down here, you got to have that signatures. Now on your electronic copies, do I need to have your signatures down here? No, because you can't do that electronically. So the electronic submission is going to come to me with no signatures. You can type in their names if you want, or you can leave it blank. But that's no big deal, because I'm going to be receiving a hard copy that will have the signatures. So just don't forget when you're mailing in to do your signatures. But don't worry about that for the electronic copy, because you can't do that unless you got an electronic signature. And I don't think you're going to be given that to put on there for someone. So I tell you that. And this at the bottom is important. Don't PDF this and send it to us. Do not PDF this. And that's a new thing just this year, because that makes it tremendously hard to send this information to me, for me to look, because I have to use this information once this stuff goes to the validation period for the winners and the alternates, and I have the hardest time with getting that information off of a PDF. So send me the Word copy. Do not PDF this and send it to me. If I get it in time, I may be able to contact you and say, you sent the PDF, that's against the requirements. Can you please send me, you have time, can you send me a Word document? But I may not get it in time enough to read that. So I ask that you be able to really honor the application. And that part one of the applications this year, we've added this, and this is, when you send this to me, I'm looking for a yes. If there's not a yes and there's a no, then right there, that tells you there's a problem with your submission. You're confirming that you have included your 2 recommendations along with the hard copy application, not separately. So I'll take that back. I'll take that back, what I told you earlier about your recommendations. So your recommendations can come in electronically as well as this. So I do take that back. I forgot that we did change this policy this year. I added this box because I need to know how the recommendations are going to come to me. I have had recommendations that haven't come in at the same time as the application. They've gotten lost. Last year, some of them came like way after the judging period, and that was unfortunate that they did. But this is to secure. I changed this to secure that it does not disqualify you because someone you asked to do a recommendation did not get it to you. So if I don't want them to mail it in separately. Like you send me your hard copy and they tell you, well, I'll put this in the mail and I'll mail it to DPI. So I kind of backtrack and take that back. You can send it in electronically. That's how we would prefer it. But if you have sent it in, we want to know that it's with your application and not coming separately. And then down here, your eligibility, right here, you're expanding on who you are, why you're eligible, and why you even want this. You got to do good with this because you can only do it in 100 words, and most of you know you can't really say a lot of what you want to say in 100 words. So it has to be deliberate, and it has to show you in your best feature. Let me check my questions. I have another question. Have my okay. Excuse me. Our recommendation needs to be. Oh yeah, she was reading that, and just finish that. But I already have my recommendation letters from my people printed and signed. Can we mail them in, or do you want them emailed? I would prefer to have them scanned and emailed, Allison. But it does. It's gonna be what's most comfortable to you. You're in a good position because you have your recommendations and you're not dependent on someone to mail them separately. So if you want to hold on to them and send them in stapled with your hard copy, then you're just going to check that box and let me know that. Or you can send them in electronically. Either way. And I most definitely want to make sure that I clear that up based on what I said earlier. Excellent question. And you really are in a good position. A lot of young people at this date in September still don't have their recommendations from the people. So those of you listening, if you would, I'd go ahead and start asking people, have they finished, and can they go ahead and give me that so you can have that way before October. And please remember, don't let anyone tell you they're going to mail it in themselves. Just please don't do that. We've had several last year who their recommendations never got to us, and two, that the recommendations didn't come until almost the end of October. It was almost November, and of course their paperwork never went on because they didn't have a completed packet. All right. The required essay, you have to make sure that you doing that, and I hope you got started. Many people have emailed me over the past few weeks, starting in August, and they've just been asking clarification on the essay to make sure that they are going in the right direction. Those questions I can answer. I never answer questions about how you're doing. Can I send my essay to you if I finish it early and you kind of read over it and tell, nope, not going to do that. Remember, this is a content competition. That would be unfair to those people who don't send theirs in. So I will answer questions about format, style, mechanics, but I will not read your essay. That you can get someone else to do before you send it in. And so this right here is really important that you follow these. You're probably thinking, well, who wouldn't if the directions are right there? But this is what the rubric is based on. The rubric is based on the logistics of if it's typed, if it's written, strike. We're not even gonna read it. It needs to be double spaced, and that's because judges have a lot to read. They can't. It gets kind of it bothers the eyes when you have to read so many essays that are all single space. So double space your essay and have your name typed at the top of both pages. Why has this been added in the past couple of years? Because we get essays and they don't have any names to them. And electronically, you're sending them to me. I put everything. I create a folder for you. But there's potential for anything to happen when those start being set up for judges to receive. And then I don't know, did I attach someone's essay to the wrong person? And we don't want student A getting student B's essay, and student B's essay is a flop when student A's essay was outstanding. So we ask that you put the name on both pages at the top. Of course, it needs to be typed because you're sending it electronically. So we just need it on both pages. On both pages. Um, Nothing past 2 pages. Now, the reality of this is it's once it gets past 2 pages, I tell the judges to stop reading. So if you're not made your argument in 2 pages, then that's unfortunate. And also, it's a process of being strategic and really being able to say what you need to say in a limited amount of time. And many of you probably do that in school anyway with your essays. But 2 pages, 2 pages and 3 lines at the top. Those 3 lines, we instruct the judges not to read them. That's another part of not following directions. And you need to provide good evidence for whatever you're doing and saying with your essay, and then cite your sources. And so, with that, kind of looking at that as being a part of what we're doing, we want you to know that any bibliography that you use will not be considered as a part of the 2 pages. So you don't have to worry about that. We won't count that as a part of your 2 pages. All right. Great question here. The citations, do we want footnotes or parentheticals? It doesn't matter. Excuse me. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you're most comfortable with, because either will be appropriate. What I will share with you though is that footnotes will take up some of your page space. So you may want to think about that. You will have more page space to say what you want to say if you use the parentheticals, and then of course you're citing it in your bibliography. So that's separate and it won't count in your page space. But most definitely, if you use footnotes, that's going to take up some lines that maybe you could say 2 or 3 more things in a manner that you'd like to. So thank you for that question. It's a very good question. One thing about the essay is, I'm going to flesh out of this for just one moment. And I'm going to open or unhide this slide. One thing about the essay is I just wanted to see if anyone had a question about what you're writing. If you do, I'll address it if you put it in the question feature, or if you just want to, I've unmuted you. If you want to pipe in and ask, that's fine too. But just so I've had some, I've had 2 calls and I've had maybe about 4 or 5 emails. So I did think it was important for me to make sure that everyone was good in the direction that they're going. Of course, all this information that you see prior to the bold is information that's kind of setting up the prompt for you. So it's kind of just providing some background from which you can glean and begin your research to write, or your brainstorming, or your outlining, as I know that you're taught to do before you actually write your papers. And so we're just sharing some common beliefs about the fundamental principles in America, trying to tie this back to your civics and government, civics and economics classes, your American history classes, and see what understandings that you probably have not as a junior or a senior, even if you just started one of those classes and or maybe haven't taken them yet. You still are at an age where you say you're interested in government, so these are things that should be familiar to you, even if you may not have an in-depth study of it right now. And so that's kind of to provide you with that background, and then preparing the essay really is written based on what's in bold. You really are, what the judges are going to be looking for in their rubric is they're going to be looking for, and listen carefully, when the judges start reading these essays, the rubric then is based on them being asked to look to see if this essay addresses the significance of voting and the principle of representative government. If your essay is written and you never address this, then you know right now that that is a weak essay, and someone else who has addressed this is going to have a higher point value than you. So I'm letting you know that if you started writing and you've not addressed this, you need to go back and you want to do that. And you got to be able to do it in 2 pages. It is also the rubric the judges are going to look for you talking about how have common beliefs about voting. So in America, what are some of the common beliefs that people have about voting as American citizens? And in that, how have they been impacted by controversial issues around voter identification laws across the nation? So this is very current, very current. And so this requires we're not writing this with our passion and our feeling. We're writing this based on evidences that you know, and then you can tie back to what you know about history and about government and what does the law say, or what do policies and practice say. The other thing that they're looking for in your essay, in that the judges are going to look for, have you talked about the question of do these laws increase democracy and representative government, or do they limit them? And you must explain that. Whatever your statement is based on your information and your reading, not based on what you believe. This essay is not about your point of view. This essay is not about your perspective. This is not a persuasive essay where you are trying to persuade someone. I say that because we've had in the past people written from that point of view, and that is not what we want. And that's not what's going to get you high points. And so the students who write to the essay get the highest points. This essay is a large part of getting you to the next round to possibly be one of the candidates who interview. And then finally, does this essay discuss whether or not these laws help maintain freedoms of American people? And ultimately, that's what you want to address also. So we don't tell you what laws to cite. We don't tell you what beliefs and principles to use. But it all needs to be based on evidences of historical fact, of what actually, what you find. And that's why your citations are important, because it's not based on what you believe, it's on common beliefs, and then on the laws and what have you. Very objective essay. This is maybe different from essays you write in your English class. Historical and civic essays really base themselves on evidences when you talk about the social studies. And this is the real life, real world kind of things that your senators study and have to consider when they represent us in the capacity as our state representatives. And so that's the significance of the essay. So let me check to see if I have any questions about that. This essay it can sometimes be something that people kind of really flounder on. Yep, if we have a parenthetical, if you have the parentheticals, then yeah, we want a works cited page, because in parentheticals you're only going to give us the author and the date or what have you. So where did the whole of it come from? Where did the whole of it come from? And that's really more so for our validation of how you are supporting your evidences. So that's a really good question. If you got the parentheticals, yeah, you still want to give a work cited, because if it says Smith 2008, what did this come from? Of course, we know if it comes from the Constitution, you're fine. But yes, real good question. I'm checking to make sure there are no more questions. Okay. All right. last thing is your digital presentation. This is something when you start preparing, I I suggest that you take it from this mindset, and this is the context around which it was designed. The thinking behind having students do a digital presentation is you can only tell us so much about who you are in your application. It's really asking for a lot of the demographic information and just the GPA qualification, it's the statistical information. So from that we can tell that you're eligible. But it doesn't really tell us anything about you other than you're in student body president or what have you, what have you. Then you have that second part of the application that asks you to give us those 5 responses. And that is where you can elaborate in 100 words or less on who you are and why you want this. The presentation is designed to help you enhance who you are to us outside of those student responses, because you can only tell us so much. So visually you're showing us, you're backing up what you say and you're elaborating on it. If you've been working the polls, or you're very civically engaged, or you work with the service learning, you volunteer, you're Girl Scout, you're Eagle Scout, you do service mission projects, just those things that you want us to know about you that lend themselves to your leadership. You've started this initiative, you are in charge of this, you want to highlight those things. And you can look at some of the things that people have done in the past that were winners, some of their presentations. I do need to upload some current ones, but you can kind of glean from that. This is to share who you are. And when it comes down to it, that you guys who apply for this, you're all top. You're top notch, and it's hard. It really is hard for us to make decisions as the judges as to who should be the top winners. So you're trying to present yourself in the best light based on what the Senate Youth Program is looking for and who they want to expose to this opportunity as based on the national vision and mission. So this is your chance to do that and highlight and say things you couldn't say in writing. This also is important because a part of your interview when you come to DPI in Raleigh, if you get on a chance to interview, is you have to then take your presentation and use it to present to the judges, and they ask questions, and it is also going to show your presentation skills, how you interact with people. So this serves as a lot of has a lot of purpose behind it. But the beginning and initial purpose is to allow you to expand and highlight who you are and why you deserve to be the St. Louis Youth Representative. All right, we're kind of at the end, and so once more, I know we've been taking questions throughout, but now is the time where I really want to make sure that we don't end without you having asked your questions. And I don't see any additional questions in the question box. I'm just checking to make sure I got them all. Are there any questions you just want to throw out at this time? Okay. Well, I am always there for questions, any concerns. And so please feel free to email me and ask me. Now, this is the email you can use between now and October to ask me any questions you get stuck, or you do something and you're not quite sure, you don't want to be worried about it. I do not care what the question is. You email me at any time and I'll get back to you. So after today, you think of something, do not hesitate. Share with your friends who are doing the very same thing. And once more, before we end, I'll just check, and I don't have any. And so we are about 5 minutes before we are due to end. And I just want to, as we prepare to end, ask you to keep in mind, just follow the directions on the application. Um, that's your security. If you follow the application um, to the letter, if you follow what you see printed that I've asked you to the letter, then anything after that would be my error, and I have to adhere to what I've put in writing. And so please just follow the application request and information and instructions. Both of those you can find on the website at any point in time. And if there are no other questions, then I do thank you for taking the time to wake up with me this Saturday morning. And I look forward to receiving each of your applications in October. And I just ask you to have a good day. Thank you once again for joining, and look for this recording if you want to share it with someone, or if you want to reference anything that's been said again. Look for this recording to be posted um, sometime between now and Monday afternoon. Hopefully, I'll get it up this weekend as long as the site's working. But between now and Monday afternoon, you can get this and the PowerPoint. So I have the recording and the PowerPoint for you. All right. It's just a little bit before 10, and I will ask you to have a safe and wonderful weekend, and I look forward to getting your applications in October. The webinar at this point is ended, and I will receive any questions and concerns at my email after this point. Have a wonderful school year and be the change you want to see in the world. Goodbye.